In this episode of In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, special guest, offensive line coach Frank Pollack. He's at the top of his game. There is no question about it. The biggest thing that you have to have with your players is trust. And his football players trust that Frank Pollack is going to put them in the best position to succeed every single snap. They believe in his techniques. They believe in everything that he's teaching. They believe in his schematics. They believe in Frank Pollack. And we're going to find out who molded Frank Pollack, who were some of the offensive line coaches that mentored Frank Pollack to become the offensive line coach that he has become. He played in the league for 8 years, won a Super Bowl. I call that instantaneous credibility. He knows of what he speaks. The players believe him. They believe in him. I think you're going to like what Frank Pollack's all about. Before we get into the conversation with Frank Pollack, during the visit, Jim McNally came up a couple of times, and it brought back so many memories of what Jim McNally was for us in the 1981-82 season, Super Bowl 16, in the 1988-89 season, Super Bowl 23 with the Cincinnati Bengals. He was the offensive line coach for both Super Bowl teams. Enough said. That's a pretty good resume right there. Jim McNally was the master of attention to detail. His game plans, every single situation against every single defense, every single adjustment that defense could make was documented with an assignment adjustment. And he burned the midnight oil. I mean, it was 16 millimeter film back then, and he would cut and splice film. I mean, there would be film hanging all over his office, all over a room in his house that he would put together to show us things that he wanted to point out as key things to look for and react to during the course of the football game. It was unbelievable how much work he put into a day. There weren't enough hours in the day. And I can remember many times his wife, Callahan, saying that she'd go into the room in his house that he used as his office. He's asleep, chin on his chest, projectors on, and just you hear film. 16 millimeter film just slapping on the projector because it had run through, and it'd probably run through for, I don't know, half an hour to an hour as Jim McNally would catch a cat nap. That dude never slept. It was all work. 24 hours was not enough. He crammed 25 hours into a day somehow. Jim McNally was as good as has ever coached offensive line in the history of football. Welcome to our beautiful First Star Logistics studios once again. You're listening to In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And training camp is underway. So our special guest today is somebody that's vitally important to the success of the Cincinnati Bengals franchise this season, offensive line coach Frank Pollack. Coach, appreciate you. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, can already tell it's training camp. You're a few days in. You've been coaching. I'm telling you, Coach, you are a joy to watch now. Talk about passion for the game of football. You bring it. I mean, every single day, the energy, the enthusiasm, the tempo, and your voice is showing it. You're getting your voice in football shape, huh?
Yeah. Well, this first week, my voice tends to go on me until I get it back and get it used to me running around, raising it a little bit more than I normally do during the off season.
You know, you've made a huge impact on your offensive line immediately. And that was even before training camp started, OTAs and mini camps and that sort of thing. And in my mind, if I were one of the offensive linemen and you were my offensive line coach, the thing that would impress me initially is immediate, instantaneous credibility, because you played 8 years in the National Football League. You had a Super Bowl ring hanging off your finger that you won with the San Francisco 49ers. As a player, that means everything because you've been there, done that, Do you feel like you've got that respect, that instantaneous credibility amongst the troops in your O-line room?
Well, I think the guys can appreciate that I've been in their shoes, so to speak. But at the end of the day, I've got to bring something to the table to these guys every day to help them get better. So they might be a little bit more welcoming from that aspect. And but at the end of the day, as a coach, we all have that same responsibility and hurdle to clear. Is you got to help your guys get better. It's like, they're asking, what can you do for us? And so that's kind of every day my mantra. I got to give these guys more tools and keep developing the tools that they've already know and learn and rep, and then so they can improve and get better every day.
That's the other part of you having been there, done that, and at a high level successfully, is I think any relationship's built on trust, right? And I think your offensive line trust the fact that you're not going to ask them to do anything crazy. You're not going to say, "Look, I want this done," and they'll look at each other like, "That's just he hasn't played. He can't do that." So they know whenever you ask them to do something, you've done it. You're not going to ask them to do anything you haven't done. And I think that gives them a sense of comfort, sense of trust. I sense that when I'm talking to the guys. Do you feel that too?
Yeah, I'm real big on that. I mean, line one, they all know, and then me as a coach knows, hey, their job's hard. It's extremely hard, and I don't need to be making it harder. I want to make it as easy as I possibly can, and that's really not ever going to be the case. But if I can just clear any kind of mental clutter, or don't ask them to do something that's really physically impossible because we presented an issue schematically, don't do that. I mean, and then fight to protect my room. I mean, my job as a coach is to kind of also be O-line advocate and make sure that I'm protecting those guys, that we're not asking them to do something that doesn't make sense, that they're not capable of doing. And we do that at every position. Every coach does that. So it's no different. But I think I tell the guys, hey, sometimes I might put us in a bad spot. The defense guessed right. And I tell them, if I put us in a bad spot on a play, something we got to do, I give them the right to turn to the sidelines and give me a little sign that says, "Coach." And I'm okay with that. That's what's fun about coaching in this league. You're coaching grown men, and I treat them as such, so we're in this together, and hopefully I'm not ever putting them in that situation, at least not very often.
In listening to you, Coach, since you've been here, and thank goodness this is your second opportunity with the Cincinnati Bengals, but in listening to you, everything is, you're big on the margin for error and decreasing the margin for error for your guys and increasing the margin for error for the opponent. Whether it's saying to Jonah Williams, "Look, man, put on 10 more good pounds. You're a technician. You always have yourself in great position, but you could use a little bit more ballast, a little bit more body weight. It would lessen your margin for error. It would give you a better chance for success." Talk about how you go about approaching a guy and convincing him of what you asked him to do, put on those 10 pounds, 15 pounds, whatever he did.
My old line coach with the Niners, Bob McKittrick, legendary line coach, right up there with Jim McNally, your line coach here with the Bengals. They were top of their game back in those decades. He had a line he would always tell us: mass times acceleration equals force. I was like, man, I'm sitting in here in the offensive line room, and we're talking about physics, and like, what's going on here? But I'm like, dang, that really makes sense. He believed in more smaller, undersized linemen that could play with tremendous speed and leverage, and that doesn't really change for every football player. This is a game of leverage and speed, period. Otherwise, you'd have the most biggest guys on the face of the planet weighing 400 plus pounds playing on line. You got to be able to move. You got to be able to bend. So it's that balancing act. When do you have that diminishing returns of being too heavy or too light? And each person's got its own unique range, if you will, for weight and mass
Right.
to do that. And you just talk to guys individually. And Jonah, in the case you brought up, he's a tremendous athlete. He's a really good technician. He takes pride in that. And he's smart. And so it wasn't that hard to say, hey, you can put on some more weight on your frame. It's not going to slow you down. I mean, he understood that. And of course, he's a pro. He's all in and to get better and improve his game. And so I was fired up when he came back weighing 315. I was pumped.
You know, it's Jonah, you talk about and a few guys in your offensive line room. The biggest key probably is having players that want to be great, that want to be coached, want to be helped to be great. I mean, that's the biggest prerequisite, isn't it?
Yeah. I really truly believe players want to be coached. They want to be coached. When you look back on your playing career, when some coaches maybe were a little harder on you, when you get done playing, you kind of realize at times why, right? They were really trying to push everything out of you to excel. And I think guys appreciate those coaches more than maybe the ones who took it easy on them. But players want to be coached. They want to get better. And especially, in the line room, that's line one. That's your mantra. I mean, you put your ego in your pocket and you come in here and you work, and all of us have to really become a team within the team. We're judged as a unit, and you got to work hard to get that consistency and groove playing together.
You're not only the O-line coach, you're the run game coordinator, and a big part of your philosophy and your belief is the stretch or the outside zone, and really stretching the field horizontally, stretching the defense out. And it's a margin for error thing like you've described. It widens the lanes. And if you do your technique properly, they can't be right, Coach? I mean, if they start guessing, then you got them. I mean, they can't be right. So is that pretty much what you're talking about?
Absolutely. In my opinion, the wide zone allows more margin for error for an offensive line unit in conjunction with a back who's disciplined with his reads and with the one cut system. And we have a back who runs violently and can do that. And we also have receivers who take great pride in blocking downfield and in space. I mean, it's exciting to be around that. On top of that, a quarterback who's really into the run game and wanting to know all the little checks and nuances to maximize our success. So we just got to grind on fundamentals and technique. And like you mentioned, it opens up more running lanes for the back to find and make the defense wrong. And then everything off of that, formationally and as far as flow, opens up other plays to complement that. So that's why I kind of hang my hat and believe in that scheme.
Joe Mixon led the AFC. Joe Mixon's all in. Joe Mixon is a Frank Pollack fan. In fact, he's the president of your fan club, Coach. There's no question about it. Talk about the unique relationship you have with Joe Mixon and, the story about what happened when the Bengals played the Jets and what Joe Mixon did after the game. That's a heck of a story.
Well, I'm a big Joe Mixon fan. I mean, he's a fun guy to be around.
Yeah.
One of the great perks as coaches is we get to be around these great athletes that love ball, the energy, and just to be around that every day. I mean, it's keeping me young, that's for sure. But it's fun. He's one of those guys that's at the top of the list. He's a lot of fun. But the Jets game a couple years ago, I think it was my first trip back from after I left here, and I saw him pregame. And he came over and said hello, and he told me that, hey, I'm scoring a touchdown, running over to give you the ball. And I said, Joe, don't do that. Don't do that. I appreciate the thought, but don't do that. You just play your game and whatnot. Because I thought he would literally do it during the middle of the game. I'm like, oh my God, don't do that. And then so afterwards, everyone says hello, shakes hands after the game at midfield or whatnot. Him and Andy Dalton came over there and handed me that ball. I thought that was really cool moment. Never really had that happen, especially from the opposing team at the time. So that was really neat.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, to get the game ball as such, the touchdown ball that Joe Mixon scored, that's big, Coach. Is that in your memorabilia trophy case?
Absolutely. I got 3 boys, and they thought that was the coolest thing. That made me, big time in my house.
No question about it. Let's talk about some of these offensive line coaches that have mentors of you, and it's like a who's who of offensive line coaches. You talked about Coach McKittrick with the 49ers. Let's dive into him just a little bit with guys that I throw out there. Give me the biggest thing you may have learned from them, or something that you admired most about them that you incorporate in your coaching style in the National Football League today. So let's hit on Coach McKittrick. What is it about Coach that impressed you the most?
He had us prepared for games where we were never surprised by anything the defense showed us or gave us. We knew exactly what the defense was going to do with every play and formation, and we rep that all week. We were never surprised. There was never anything like, oh, that's an unscouted look, or we didn't cover that adjustment or nuance. And he was an ex-Marine, and he was just even keel. He never raised his voice. So I guess I didn't take that from him. I get a little more loud, I guess, but he would rip you a new one without ever raising his voice, without even cussing. I guess I kind of didn't pick that up either. I get a little foul mouth at times, but it was unbelievable. He was just an even keel, and it was just a matter of fact. There's no discussion. This is how we work every day, day in and day out. And some of the drill work that we did every day, it was the same from the very beginning of training camp all the way through the season. And that's something else I also picked up from him.
Boy, when you're describing Coach, Paul Brown flashed into my head, because Paul Brown, total even keel, incredibly intelligent, never loses cool, but he could cut you to shreds in 3 words. Man, that guy could rip you one, never yell. But I mean, in 3 words, he'd make you feel like a minute puppy dog instead of a big fighting dog, man. He'd take you down.
Blunt and to the point.
No question about it. What about Alex Gibbs? What kind of an influence did Alex Gibbs have on your career?
Learning a lot of the intricacies of the wide zone. That's where I was originally more exposed to that. And then how he would, the adjustments that he would incorporate from a schematic standpoint. Real big in that. He would meet, when I worked with him in Houston, and I was a young, like, assistant O-line coach. I would ask him, when can we meet, talk about scheme? He was a really early riser. He would get up super early. He said, be in my office at 4 a.m. I'm like, okay, I'll be there at 4 a.m. Take notes, and he'd tell me how he'd game plan and attack defenses.
Wow. How about Brian Callahan, offensive coordinator with the Cincinnati Bengals?
Yeah.
His father, Bill Callahan, who I think is one of the best to ever coach offensive line.
I would agree. Coach Callahan, Bill Callahan, and I go way back. I played for him in college.
Right.
At Northern Arizona. And he was a younger coach. That was before he left, went on to Wisconsin, and done great things at Wisconsin, and his career into the pros and his head coaching stints and whatnot. So he had a huge impact on me as far as teaching toughness and demanding of players in the room. When I was in college, I was really young, a young, naive, late bloomer, if you will, trying to be nice with my wording here. Okay. And,
gotcha.
And he quickly, through a training camp, made me a little tougher, grow up, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
And he really, he was a huge technician and technique as well. And that's where I started to become a really better player, was through him And I took that with me in the NFL, and I think that's what gave me a fighting chance, because some of the things that I was learning as a pro football player, I was already being exposed to in college at this little 1AA school. And so I was very, very fortunate. And then years later, when I was playing in the league, he was at Wisconsin. I wrote him a letter. This is back before you texted guys or whatnot.
Right.
You
Right.
wrote more letters. I wrote him a letter and told him, hey, I want to coach when I'm done playing, and I'd love to be your GA at Wisconsin. Well, he wrote me back this great letter. I still have it today. I saved this, by the way, and on Wisconsin letterhead, and said, well, I think you're going to be busy for the next 5 years, and but when you're done playing, I'd love to have you be my GA. And I was like, wow, man, he thinks I can still make it in this league. Well, holy crap. So years later, I got let go at the Raiders, and then I ran into him at the Senior Bowl, and he brought me in the interview to be his assistant in Dallas. And I brought that story up with that letter. And then when I got hired, I brought that letter in to show him. I think he was a little taken back that I actually did save it.
Wow.
Like,
That's great.
That's Bill Callahan. I was fired up. But and that was tremendous. And then my career really took off as a professional coach, learning how to put together drills of drill progression, really how to run meetings. I mean, just a ton of stuff. The list goes on, but he's probably had the biggest impact on me as a coach, for sure. And then also introducing to me from schematically tight zones, some of the gap schemes and the details and the adjustments of all of those. I mean, it's been really incredible, huge impact on me.
Leads me to Jim McNally, because everything you're saying, it hits me. I was fortunate enough to play in the 1981 Super Bowl team that lost to the 49ers, Super Bowl 16, but we got there and won the AFC Championship. And Jim McNally was our offensive line coach, and he was also the offensive line coach Super Bowl 23 team in 88-89 season. So he obviously is just legendary, iconic here in Cincinnati as an offensive line coach. And when I watch you coach at practice, same drill, same footwork, same hand placement, targeting, roll your hips, finish, everything that all the drills that you're doing. I'm like, that is what we did with Jim McNally, and we did them every single day. We did them in mini camp, first day of training camp, all the way to the last practice that we had before the Super Bowl. Every single day, same drills. I mean, it was like repetition breeds comfort level, breeds excellence of performance. And, your phraseology, master the mundane, that's what we were doing. We didn't even realize we were doing it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's exactly when I'm watching you doing all the things, even the when you line the pads up and you go down the pads and you're slide stepping and jamming, man, I'm like, oh, we did that over and over and over. Everything you're doing takes me right back to that great season of 1981-82. Is Jim McNally an influence on how you coach?
He's a huge influence. He was one of Bill Callahan's mentors as a young coach. And when I got hired to the Bengals, I had loosely met Coach McNally before. And when I came here, Bill reintroduced me to him and opened up a deeper relationship with him since then. And I talk with him constantly. We text. He sends me videos talking about certain cut-ups, about variety of schemes in the league. How are guys attacking this? What are adjustments off of this? What's a possible drill? You think about this. He's been a great influence and mentor to me ever since that 2018 season. He still does some consulting with us here at the Bengals.
Right.
And he's a great resource for me. It's incredible. I feel like I'm like the luckiest guy because I get these little tidbits, these 2-minute clinic videos from him almost on a daily basis about the most mundane, detailed technique of a sliver of this play, but that's what makes you have success, you know? And so he's constantly keeping me abreast and challenging my thinking, which I really love. I might not always agree with some things he's looking at, but he makes me think about what I'm teaching at a deeper level.
Yep.
And is it really something I want to stay convicted on, or is it something maybe I need to look at adjusting and modifying? So it's tremendous. And so, yeah, he's been huge. So to have Bill Callahan's mentor, who was my mentor, like, you kidding me? I mean, I'm the luckiest guy on earth. It's a hell of a deal.
So, Coach, where did Master the Mundane come from? Is that a Frank Pollack original? Did you catch it from one of these mentors over the years, or is it a combination? How did that evolve? Master the Mundane.
When I was in Dallas, I don't ever want to say anything is original in mine, because you're influenced by somebody, something, somewhere.
Yep.
So I don't know. It just came to me when I was in Dallas. I probably read something like that from something, reading something, and it just something that it just triggered on what we're really doing and what we're really trying to train and do. So, but I'll never say anything of mine's original. It's just everything I got, I've been taught and stolen from somebody else.
Tell you though, that is a great title for any book referencing offensive line or offensive lineman. Master the Mundane. That's what it's all about, man.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it's all about. So every great successful coach has a wife that is unbelievable and totally supportive. How supportive when you decided you wanted to get into coaching? How supportive was your wife right away? And talk about that aspect of things.
Every coach's wife is a saint. To put up with what we do, I mean, they are saints, man.
Agreed.
And they're tough as nails. I know that. I mean, they got to do everything. I mean, we're over here having fun, grinding on ball and having a blast, and
Right.
They're running the house, raising kids, and doing everything. I mean, so my wife's been great. Her uncle, little side note, her uncle played in the NFL, Billy Wilson, played 12 years for the Niners, a receiver.
Yeah.
And he was a scout and coach for the 49ers forever. He has since passed away, but he was a West Coast scout, and he was the scout that came through NAU at the time. But everyone used to bust my chops about marrying Billy Wilson's niece. And I said, I'd do anything to make the team, man. I'll marry anybody. I'll do anything it takes. So, so she was actually coaching, helping out coach. She played junior college volleyball when I met her. She was actually coaching her junior college at the time. Oh. Her sister's a head volleyball coach at a junior college in the Bay Area. So she gets coaching. She's been around it. She gets sports. She's athletic. But I mean, when I got done playing, I was married, had 2 kids. Now I'm like, maybe I need to find something else. I know the time commitment. And so I dabbled in a couple other things for about 4 or 5 years. And my wife came to me one day and says, "You're miserable. We know you are. Just go coach. That's what you want to do. We'll be fine. Don't worry about me and the kids." And I'm like, so she's great, man. I'm very lucky in that regards. We've been married 28 years now.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you.
And congratulations to her as well. Any other family members, former ball players?
No, nothing. I mean, nothing. My grandfather on my mom's side in Texas, high school, I was about it, you know.
Right.
He used to tell me great stories about him in his youth playing sports, you know, in the 50s, 40s, and 50s. But, yeah, that's
great.
About it.
That's great. Let's talk about a couple of other members of your offensive line.
At First Star Logistics, we're a very strict company that really puts the pressure on our employees. Breaks? What are those?
That's what I'm talking about, Icky. Get the body right, then the mind's right. You know, gotta
get that body right. That's right. Yes, sir.
Become a star with a chance to earn the highest commission percentages in the industry as a freight broker agent. Check out firststarlogistics.com.
Let's hit Riley Reef. You get him free agency, and he's competed at a high level for a lot of years,
Right.
Successfully, knows what it's supposed to look like. How big is it to have a veteran like him? Because I think I counted 9 guys, Coach, that have 3 years or less experience in your offensive line, predominantly a pretty young group that you're molding. How big is it to have a guy going into his 10th year?
Yeah, it's tremendous. The biggest compliment I could ever give anybody, any player in this league, regardless of the position, is to call someone a pro's pro.
Yep.
I mean, and it does not matter the size of your paycheck, does not make you a pro. You know, I try to teach these young guys that. How he conducts and carries himself on a daily basis on everything he does, how he handles himself in the locker room, how he handles himself in the training room, how he handles himself in the weight room, how he handles himself in the media room, how he handles himself on a pre-practice, getting himself ready to play and practice for that day, to when he does actually rep and play in practice as reps. I mean, it's tremendous. He's great to have in a room. He asks tremendous questions, really not only for himself, but to lead to other conversations and adjustments and nuances for the young guys. Mm-hmm. He's always looking to help other guys. He's a lot of fun to be around. He's a great guy. He's all about ball. I mean, he played at Iowa. That's how they raised him, apparently, right? So it's a lot of fun to be around him.
Yeah, Mike Daniels was addressing the media the other day, and he said, Riley Reef and I were playing next to each other, defensive tackle at Iowa. He started out as a DT at Iowa. I mean, that's unbelievable. That, and he said he was just flipping guys with his wrestling ability, and the coaches were like, "Hey, dude, we think he could be a hell of an offensive lineman," and made the switch, and that was probably the greatest thing that ever happened to him. Let's move to Trey Hopkins, who gets injured January 3rd in the second half of the last game of the season,
right?
And tears his ACL, and here he is on the 28th, the first day of practice. He's available. He's there. He's cleared 100%. What the heck, man? Football's important to Trey Hopkins, isn't it?
Yeah, no question. I mean, it's important to him, and he's tough as nails, and he's a grinder. I mean, that's kudos to him. I mean, it's amazing that he's able to, what he's able to do rehab-wise and come back as strong and as quickly as he has. It's impressive. He's a smart guy, and he's a guy that takes coaching and he's applying it instantly. And he's a guy that you can teach him something 2 weeks ago and he'll remember it the next time he sees it, and he's going to apply it and improve. So he's a guy that's another guy I really enjoy coaching. And he asks probing questions, and there'll be something I might have brought up in 2018. I'll say, Trey, what was that one thing you talked about adjustment? And he's got incredible recall. He can pull that stuff out and say, Coach, I believe it was this. And so he's a lot of fun to be around.
Yeah, that dude, not only football IQ, but overall IQ. I mean, the books that he reads, I can't even pronounce some of the words in the books that dude's reading, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, me neither. I was a C student at Northern Arizona, so
he's got some serious gray matter. So the local kid, Jackson Carman. When you're dealing with young guys, and you know, and I know that in the National Football League, position versatility is a big deal. You know, you have, particularly if you're not one of the first 5, you have to be able to maybe plug in a couple of spots, because you may only have maybe even as few as 7 or 8 or 9 max offensive linemen available to you. So you don't have a backup everywhere. So a guy goes down, whoever the 6th man is, he better be able to do more than one thing. When you're dealing with a young guy, or even a not necessarily even just a rookie, but a young player, and you're trying to decide, okay, should I put him at one spot and let him get comfortable, or should I expose him to a bunch of spots? Because if he doesn't start, he's going to have to be able to play more than one position. How do you go through that decision-making process of challenging that guy? Do you have to find out what his his brain power is like, how much he can absorb?
Yeah, each guy is going to be unique in that regard. I mean, generally speaking, a young guy, a rookie, because when we're going through these heavy installs, I like to maybe just keep them in one spot.
Right.
So you can kind of learn schematically what they're doing. But every guy in the room is taught a primary position, one, and they got to know a secondary position. And they might not have that secondary position down from a technique standpoint as much as you would like that they would and demand on the primary, but they're going to be able to go function.
Yep.
And know the calls and know where to be. But how I look to teach, a lot of there's carryover and crossover if I'm going to that secondary position too. So from a technique standpoint,
Right.
So a lot of that just fold naturally. But early, I'll keep young guys, especially in one spot, so we can kind of really hone in on the scheme before I start moving them in other positions, which adds just more complexity to their learning curve. But I'll flip guys a lot left and right.
Yep.
So they can get comfortable doing that. And then, so I've been doing that on a daily basis. And then pretty soon I'll do that on a team period basis. So they'll literally be playing left side, right side multiple times in one day, as opposed to just one day on the right, the next day on the left kind of scenario.
Yeah, that's a great way to approach it. And it's funny how some guys, like you say, Coach, some guys just can't invert it. It's like some guys are so right side brain that they can't function left side brain. I mean, they just right guard to left guard, it blows their mind. They just can't invert the assignment. It's like just can't handle that. And they just, or physically, they're so dominant that they, can't get in a left-handed stance comfortably, as opposed to a right-handed stance, or whatever the case may be. But so how is Jackson Carman coming along? Is he progressing as a young player?
He is. He had a couple good days recently, and he's doing well. He's doing well in the meeting room. He's quick to give an answer when I ask a question, and even if just a general question to the room, he's quick to throw out the right answer. So that's good. But like everybody, 1 week, we haven't put the pads on yet, so we're still working on some of the fundamental things as far as pad leverage, two-step quickness, tighter hand strikes, and some of the things that he's learning are a little bit more foreign to him than maybe some of the others, because he's a rookie coming from a different type of a scheme and system in college. But he's shown some great movement skills. He's a big man. He's shown power. I'm looking forward to getting the pads on and keep growing and taking that next step with him.
One thing that I think is beneficial with this NFL today is 4 days. Well, they had the conditioning testing, so that worked the legs, obviously. Then you have 4 straight days of practice, and that's the only time in training camp or in this season probably you're going to have 4 straight days of practice without a day off. But doing it without pads, no matter what year, every year it was for me, all right, bend at your knees, not at your waist, get your pad level down, get the pad level down, bend in the proper way, and don't lean. You want to be overly aggressive, make sure you keep keeping your head and shoulders out of there. Don't lean. So those are the 2 big things, that, and you throw pads on right away and you go into 2-a-days, boom, right away, and you haven't had a chance to work on adjusting those things. Sometimes it was, you're doing it on the fly. I think, watching guys working with you in the drills, you can see it on a day-by-day progression of, getting in a football position, being able to lower the pads the right way and not leaning in pass protection, get your head and shoulders back out of there and all those good things. It's big, isn't it?
That's huge. I mean, it's everything. I mean, the defensive guys are too smart and too good, and you'll get exposed. And the athletes at this level are incredible. So any inefficiency as far as your movement and technique and fundamentals instantly get exposed. So it's paramount that you master those things.
The way you're approaching indoctrinating your offensive line to multiple, versatility spots and all that. When you're putting together an offensive line, it's the 5 best guys in the best spot. I mean, sometimes if you flip a guy, you might be, boy, he's working better with this guy at tackle and he works with this guy at tackle, and it doesn't matter to him if he's left or right. So are you looking for individuals as well as combinations? You want, I always used to and still use it, offensive line, it's like a fist. When you make a fist, it's involuntary. You have 5 components in the offensive line. You don't You don't have to like, oh, I got to curl each finger and wrap my thumb. It just happens. And when all 5 guys are working together in an offensive line, a weak hand becomes a strong fist, And so you're looking for those kind of things to occur. Is that what you're probing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great analogy too, because that right on point. What makes up a good offensive line is that fist, that strong fist. So yeah, we're probing that, and we'll start to move guys for combinations, where the competitions are the most, and trying to find that right mix to play the best 5 as a unit, not 5 individuals. It's the best 5 that plays as the best unit.
Right. It's like the sum total has to be better than each individual part. 1 + 1 has to equal 3, not just 2, right, Coach?
Yes.
Get a little synergy going there.
No question.
That's the bottom line. It seems like as a group, you got a group of guys that love ball. I mean, they want to play football. They want to be good football players, and they're totally receptive. I mean, they're buying what you're selling, Coach. Do you feel that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, I think Coach Taylor is all about that in his meetings, about guys loving ball, and then being great teammates. That's kind of our team mantra, and I think our whole staff approaches that. And like I mentioned before, I mean, it's fun and exciting to be around, from our quarterback to the running backs to the wideouts. They all love ball. I mean, Joe Burrow's in our team offensive unit meeting, and he's given them, he said to give us an example of him, changing a play or some of the cadence issues. And his first response was call a run with the cadence. And I was fired up. Are you kidding me? And the receivers, I mean, the blocking that they do on the edge, they have a smile on their face. They're excited to do it, where I've been places where they're, a little feel like that's not what they're here to do. You know what I mean? So it's great. So the offensive line is just an extension of the team, and how Coach Taylor and the rest of the staff is approached on what we want to get done here.
I've heard many defensive coaches over the years saying, you earn the right to rush the passer by stopping the run. It makes total sense. I mean, if you're getting gassed in the running game, I mean, you never get them in tough down and distance, 3rd and long, 2nd and long, whatever. It's going to be a long day. Well, the reverse of that's true too. I mean, to make pass protection life easier, you have to run the football. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's like which unit can get in 3rd and manageable situations and dictate field position and all that. And man, being able to do both is a must, isn't it, Coach?
It's a huge must. It's a game of inches. One of the things I'm telling my guys all the time is the more physical you are in the run game, the more physical you are on any kind of a keeper naked play action, you're just wearing down the D line. So that pass rush gets a little slower in the 4th quarter. That stuff wears on them. It adds up. So it all goes together, all of it. So it's not one over the other. You got to do both, like you mentioned.
That's the one thing I love about your screen game. I mean, you're going to make defensive linemen pursue and chase and have their tongues hanging to their kneecaps. I love that screen game. Make those guys run, man. Make life a little bit easier. Final question, Coach, and appreciate you carving time like you did and spending all the time with us. What do you do to get your throat back? What's the treatment? Do you gargle with razor blades, Coach, or what are you going to do?
Definitely not. I don't know. Just keep drinking some coffee and mix it in some water, I guess. You got any advice? Maybe a cold beer at night. I don't know. Yeah.
That's a good remedy right there. But just so everybody understands, it's not easy. I mean, you have to get your voice ready, and for you to do this with us, Coach, dealing with what you're dealing with the coaching you're doing with the voice, because you're definitely distinguishable out there. I can detect the Frank Pollack bark, very, very quickly, very easily, man.
Well, hopefully that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. It's a great thing. And welcome back to Cincinnati.
Appreciate it.
You're a hell of a football coach and human being as well, equally important. And the city's better to have you here with us, Coach. Appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Really love Cincinnati. It's a great place. Love it.
Have a great year, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, Dave Lapham here. Have you heard about In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics? Catch new episodes from the world of sports and broadcasting. Search for In the Trenches with Dave Lapham on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.